In this week's project, we're going to be working on the first development proof of our website. Over the course of the last 2 months, you should have developed a really strong platform for your state or national park website. You've worked on the wireframes for your site, the content that will live within each of the pages, as well as promotional banners. Last week, you've worked on creating the Bootstrap foundation, and you should have a really nice responsive grid and platform established for you to kind of develop and work on further this week. So here in week 2, we're going to be working on the development proof number 1. We're going to expand upon the wireframe foundation that you've created, and we'll start to build out the different features and content of the website. For the next 3 weeks of the course, we will be focusing on developing the sites and adding all of the required content accordingly. Weeks 2 and 3 will be where the main bulk of the coding should take place. Then in week 4, you'll be adding any final touches, as well as designing animated web banners to promote your website. For week 2 specifically, you'll need to have 3 completed pages within your site that include live and interactive content. This week, we're going to utilize your prior knowledge of HTML and CSS, as well as Bootstrap, to produce your site from the mockups you've designed. Be sure to establish your navigation, add your live text and images, and start to build your links between all of the different pages. For your first proof, you'll be required to have 3 working pages live with content that link to one another. Consider creating a timeline for yourself to use in estimating and planning how long each page or feature may take to code. This is something that you'll become more familiar with and more accurate with the more you practice it, as well as the more you work with code and development. But it really comes in handy when you're kind of planning and establishing timelines for your projects overall. For the site requirements in terms of pages, the following pages are required of your site at the end of the month once the project is due. You'll need to have a home page and then 5 content pages as a minimum. So you'll need to have an about page, a main section page, such as the main header sections of possibly different events, sites, or tours that might be taking place at your national or state park. You'll also need to have a main content subpage, and this will be a subpage with information about the above. So maybe it's information on one of those events or tours or something similar. You'll need to have a gallery page with an image gallery, and you'll also need to have a contact page with a form created on that page. The following features are required of your site at the end of the month. So these are different interactive elements or features that you'll need to code into some of those required pages. So you'll have to have a Bootstrap responsive framework, which you should have already established last week. You'll need to also have a navigation menu, an image slider, a gallery page. You'll need to include some usage of web fonts, such as Typekit or Google Fonts, and those will be covered in a next class lesson in the future. You'll also have to have a form, which may be active or inactive, depending on how comfortable you are with adding the functionality of that form. You'll have to include a Google map or another embedded code from a different third-party site. So you can think about possibly using the Google map or including some rich media from possibly YouTube or Vimeo. And you'll also need to include one extra interactive element of your choice. This could be something from one of those jQuery plugin lists or something that you've seen online that you want to try and learn how to utilize and implement within your own site. The requirements for the submission, similar to last week, will be using the Adobe Creative Cloud as well as a code editor of your choice. The size and resolution of the pages is going to be based on the content as well as the device. The color space will of course be RGB, and you'll be submitting a compressed zip file. That zip file should be named with your last name, your first name, and then proof 1. The following must be submitted within your zip file: your HTML files. So you'll likely have index.html and any other associated page files. You'll need to have about 3 of these. So that might be index.html, about.html, contact.html. So whatever 3 pages that you've created, make sure that you're including those within your zip file. And then you'll need to have any other required CSS, JavaScript, fonts folders, and any content such as an images folder or anything else that you're linking to in your website. That's what should be included within your zip file submission. The following requirements must be met. You'll have to include a minimum of 3 finalized pages with content, images, text, interactive elements that are linked via navigation or other links. So utilize the mockups and content with the images and type. Make sure that all of that content is no longer placeholder content and that's actual live images and text. You'll also need to include a minimum of 3 elements from the required features list on the previous site requirement page. So you can, of course, use more pages if you need to in order to utilize all of the required elements. This week, though, we're just focusing on at least 3 pages and at least 3 elements. So it's kind of up to you in terms of how you want to approach this, which pages you want to work on, which features you want to work on. And that's where that kind of estimating and planning phase really comes in handy, because you can chart over the progress of the next couple weeks, what you want to be working on when for the website. And these assignments are more or less checkpoints or proofs on the work in progress of the website overall. The schedule of meetings, as always, the meetings will be scheduled by a student as needed. So if you do need any extra help or critique along the way, feel free to schedule those meetings. Here in week 2, we are working on the first project checkpoint, which is the first proof of the site development. Next week, in week 3, we'll be submitting the second proof on the site development. And then, of course, in week 4, that will be the final submission where the final site needs to be completed. And we will also have the accompanying web banners completed at that point as well. You can schedule a meeting as needed, as always, at grd-folio6.ucanbook.me. And the meetings will, of course, be held in the Wk2 meeting space for Folio 6. You can find that at gotomeet.me/grd-folio6. So the tips for success, as always this month, it's going to be to just expect the unexpected, not to give up, just stay on track, make sure that you're staying motivated and dedicated to solve these problems and work through and develop the content website that you're working on. And don't forget to utilize the tools around you to help you succeed. The rubric this month is going to be based on 30% specifications, 30% content, and then 40% code. So for the specifications, we're going to be making sure that the HTML and required files and folders are submitted in a zip file properly. We're going to make sure that the proper software was utilized for code and accompanying files. The content, this is going to be based on making sure that the 3 pages were coded and included within the submission, and the content is built into that, such as the text and images. We're also going to make sure that those pages include the 3 required elements, as mentioned previously, and that all of the pages are linked together via navigation or other text and image links. For the code, we're going to take a look at making sure that the code is functional, making sure the site works, and that it's also responsive. Is the code well organized and easy to navigate? And are there comments left for developers or other teammates to reference, as well as yourself to reference if they get stuck? So that's how we're going to be grading this week's assignment. Again, it's a checkpoint on making sure that we're making progress towards building out this site, focusing on the content and elements that we have in our mockups, and starting to build out the website. So let me know if you should have any questions or comments, and I'd be happy to help. And as always, have fun and enjoy yourself out there as you're coding and working through building this website.